Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for round about the next, probably around about 30 minutes. I think that should be enough to cover what we need to in this morning session. We're looking at CH50 accounts, obviously it's reports, and specifically we're looking at the nominal activity area in this morning's session. Now, the reason we're covering this one, we get loads of questions surrounding the nominal activity to our support team. It's one of our most accessed articles as well from within our help centre, so that's why we're covering it today. So we're going to cover the very basics of that sort of area. Just again, try and familiarise you with the core of CH50 accounts. Now, just before we get started, and just in case any of you are new to webinars, there's a few names I don't recognise there, but first of all, you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you've got one and you have enabled it as you've joined, then you will find you're muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself during the session. So you can't actually speak to us as such, but you can send your questions. To do that, you need to type them into the questions panel. And to access that, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon, which is on the toolbar on the right. Give it a click, it'll expand the panel, and then you'll have access to that box in the bottom right-hand corner. So questions, comments, if you want to engage with me, please do. If you want to have a try and just say hello or hi, you're more than welcome. But remember to click send, otherwise we won't see that. And I'll just try and react to those comments and questions as you submit them throughout. If we do get inundated, which we can do from time to time, then obviously I'll be picking questions up towards the end as well. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, which are very minimal today, you'll find the detailed information available in our help centre. But if you do want a copy of the slides, those are available to download. As normal, in case you need a recap, the session is being recorded, and a link to that recording will be emailed out around about an hour after we finish. So if you do need a recap or you want to share it with a colleague, you'll have that available to you. That email will also include links to our registration page. Now, we're just about to publish the rest of the May sessions and the June timetable. So if you are interested, by the end of today, that should be all be available for you to book onto. So again, get yourself registered. They're all free to attend. And it will also include a link to our recordings page as well. So if you've missed any sessions, or maybe you're fairly new to webinars and you weren't attending them at the time, then the recordings are available for you to access at any time. So that will be on that email as well. Right, okay, so that's the housekeeping. Let's get stuck into what we're actually covering. So this is the agenda for today's session, which doesn't actually look like a lot. So we're going to start with a brief introduction. We'll then get stuck into some demonstrations. We'll also cover some of the common questions we get asked as well. But obviously we'll be picking up the majority of those sort of common scenarios, helping you to understand the ins and outs of the reports and what it shows as we work through the demonstrations. Just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support that's available. So not just for this particular topic, but just for your software in general. And then if there are any outstanding questions, I will pick those up as well. Right, so let's get started. Now, there are a number of different ways to view the activity against a nominal code. And a nominal code, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, just forms your nominal ledger. Obviously, it's broken down into codes so that you can classify your transactions as you enter them. So it might be a sale, it might be a purchase, it might be classed as an overhead, a fixed asset. So you'll have your list of codes. And as you enter transactions, doesn't matter what that transaction is, whether it's a journal, a bank payment, an invoice, it will need to have some form of nominal code attached to it. So as you enter transactions, they'll be posted against the nominal code, and that history or that list of transactions posted against it is what we term the activity. So there are a few ways you can view that. One is to go into the nominal codes ledger, into the record, which you can access in a couple of different ways. The easiest one is just to double click the nominal code. And then within the record, you've got the activity tab down the side. I'll show you these in a moment. You can also just go into nominal codes and select your record, so highlight it, and then click activity on your toolbar at the top. It takes you into exactly the same screen as if you've gone via the nominal record. You've also got the nominal activity report itself. So we'll be having a look at that one. And then the other one, I've put a question mark against it, is the transactions ledger. Now, a lot of people do question that one. The problem with the transactions ledger, yes, you can filter it, but the problem with that is that you might not necessarily see all the transactions that you're after because of the way that accounting works. So I'll quickly show you these screens and then we'll get stuck into what they actually show themselves and obviously pick up on that transactions list as well and how you might not quite get at what you're after using that transactions list. So let me quickly share my screen. And we're going to start by going into nominal codes. And the first one that was mentioned on my list there was going into the nominal record. Now we can do that one of two ways. If I just scroll down and I'm going to select one of my sales nominal codes. So we got this one here, which has got a balance against it. Now if I double click that, it takes me into the record. And we've got the activity option on the left here. So we'll come back to the screen in a moment as well. So we can see all the transactions that have been posted to this specific nominal code. The other way we can do that is just to, from the nominal codes list, highlight the relevant record, and then you've got the activity icon along the top. So again, it will take you into a similar screen. So we get all of those transactions. Now let's just go back to the record first of all. So we'll double click it to get into the record. We'll come back to the report and the transactions list a little bit later on. So if we click the activity, and it will give us that list of transactions again. Now we've got a number of options when we're working in an activity screen. And if you're not that familiar with sort of the debits and credits of bookkeeping, so the journal side of it, so what gets debited, what gets credited, there is a course available from Sage University covering bookkeeping fundamentals. So you just head to sageu.com, and as long as you need to set yourself up with an account, but other than that, all the courses are free to attend. So there is one on bookkeeping which would help you understand the journal side of things that much better. So if you're looking and thinking, well, why is that a credit, or why is that a debit, or why is that showing the net value or the VAT value only, or maybe the gross value, depending which nominal code you're looking at, have a look at that Sage University Bookkeeping Fundamentals course. It should explain that in a bit more detail, help you understand that. So if you've never done sort of I suppose accounts training where you're talking about debits and credits and T accounts and things like that, then that course could help in that respect. Now, obviously in the screen, let's just go through what options we've got and what it actually shows. Well, first of all, you've got the nominal code and the name of that nominal code at the top. You've got some criteria along the top as well. So in this case, on the show, I think by default, it'll be the, where is it? I think it just shows everything by default, but we can easily filter if required. So you tend to find when you're looking at the screen that you'll probably only want transactions for a certain period. So if I go to, and I'll go back to it, it was already set to this financial year, we can get at that. It would filter it for me. Obviously you can choose other periods. There's also the custom option as well. The custom option would enable you to narrow it down by both transaction range. So you put the relevant numbers in that you want to view. Maybe you only want to view specific transaction types. Obviously it will vary as well depending on which nominal code you're viewing. So in this case, we're looking at a sales nominal code. So chances are you're just going to see generally invoices and maybe bank receipts on here. You might see other transactions, but because of the type of nominal code that I'm viewing, which is a sales one in this case, it's primarily invoices and possibly even bank receipts. So you can choose and you can filter that list based on that if required. And then finally, you've got the option to enter a date range as well. So because we've clicked the custom option, it's picked that relevant range up for me. It means that we're not, if you've been using Sage 10 years plus, you're not, you haven't got thousands and thousands of transactions listed, and maybe you're then having to scroll up and down the list trying to find what you're after. It keeps it much more compact. So the recent relevant information is what's displayed. And obviously you've got this little tick box here as well, outstanding transactions only. So if it was a list of invoices, for instance, I could sort of filter that and I'll see the outstanding ones that are listed against that nominal code. Quite an unusual one to select that one when you're viewing a nominal range or a nominal activity, I should say. So let's just take that back off. We're back to where we were. So that's the custom range option. Obviously, as I say, you've got some preset periods as well, just depending what you want to base that around. Your date box here just displays essentially what criteria you've specified. So your date range, your transaction types, whether you're viewing outstanding only or not, and also the transaction number range as well. So rather than specify a date range, if you know the first transaction number of your current financial year, you could have put that in the custom range. And again, it would mean that you've only got that sort of the recent transactions displayed then. You've then got the detail of the transaction itself. So you've got the transaction number, what you would term the audit trail number. You'll sometimes hear it referred to as that. Obviously, that's a unique number, so you've got that cross-referencing throughout the software. You've got the transaction type, so SI being a sales invoice. You might have what you term a hot link in here as well. Now, a hot link would be determined, you may or may not have one of those, depending on how the transaction is being entered. Now, in this instance, this would be a batch invoice that I've entered, this final one, is transaction 1398, which means it doesn't have a hot link. So it's where I've just gone into customers and I've clicked batch invoice and I've just keyed it in that way. Whereas this one above, it does have this little hot link arrow, and that's because it's been entered via the invoicing module. So it means it can link off to this specific document. So if I click that little arrow, it will actually open the invoice that it relates to, which in this case is invoice number 92. So I can get from the activity. Similar if you were viewing a customer or a supplier, you've got similar options available. So it means that you can easily, if you're looking at the activity and think, actually, that one there, I need more information about it. How can I get at that? So you've got your little hot link. So as you can see, not all of them have that, and that's because, in this instance, just because I've entered them in a slightly different screen. You've then got the date of the transaction, the reference, an extra reference if you've entered one, the department. Now I've got a project column in here as well. I've got the projects option enabled. I know a few of you, I recognise a few of the names on the list there, and I know fine well that you do use the projects option, so you will have that listed. We've got the details column. You've got your amount. Now obviously the amount might vary. Again, just coming back to what I was mentioning about the sort of the double entry side of accounting. So depending what nominal code you're looking will determine what element of the transaction you're looking at. So because we're looking at the 4000 nominal code, the sales side of things, the sales nominal code itself, when we've entered the invoice for £100 plus VAT, what we've got in this instance, we've got the net value, which is posted to this specific nominal code. The VAT value would have gone to our sales nominal code, and the gross value, the £120, in this instance, would have gone against our debtors control. So that's the sort of the double entry side, as it were. So you've got the amount and also whether it's a debit or a credit against the specific nominal code. You've then got the totals for the relevant columns, and then you've got the balance, obviously the difference between the debits and the credits. So it's got that basic information on there. should you need it. Right, now we're just going to go back to this screen for a moment. And when we're looking at the nominal code, something to bear in mind when we've got a balance here. So you can see we've got a balance here of £1,311.23. This figure here is not date sensitive. So this is just the account balance when you're looking at the nominal codes list. So if I'd entered a transaction, so let's just enter a future date transaction. So I need to remember that we are in May now. So if I go and enter a batch invoice, and I'll do this for June. So we'll just do the 3rd. We'll do it for that A1D001 account. I'll put my initials in there so we can see it and identify it in a moment. And we'll just type services. And we'll do, let's do £1,000 plus VAT. And I'll save that transaction. So I've actually future dated a transaction in this instance. So if we go back to the nominal codes window, you can see that the balance against this nominal code, it's now increased by that £1,000, the net value of what we've just posted. So this isn't date sensitive. So it's just the value overall, or the sum of the transactions that are posted to this nominal code, historically or future, or even just in the current month. It's everything. That's something to bear in mind if you are comparing that to different screens. So if I go back to the activity, you can see we've got that balance there because it's included and it has listed the transaction. So here it is at the bottom with my initials next to it. However, if I'd entered a custom range and I think, well, actually I want this this financial year only, actually that's not a good example. Maybe I want to specify the current month. So if I do May, you can see that actually I've got a different value there. So that we've got that history balance. So obviously it can differ. So it's something to be aware of when you're going into the activity, what the overall balance is that you're looking at, where does it calculate and where does it come from. So that's the activity screen, but what about the report itself? Now, if we go into the report, so we'll just leave that one nominal code selected, so 4,000. We'll go into reports. And if we go into the nominal activity folder, we've got two reports in here. So first one, just nominal activity. Second one is the same report, but it would then exclude any nominal codes that have no activity. I'll try and explain, I'll give you a demonstration of that one in a moment. But if we run this one, we'll preview it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run it up to the current date. And actually, we'll run it for the start of from the start of the financial year. So we'll do 01/01/2025, and we'll run it up to the current date. So it is the 2nd today. I'll leave everything else as is, and we'll just OK that. Zoom in a bit as well so you can see it. Now this shows pretty much the same information. It doesn't show any project information on here, but potentially you could amend the report if you wanted to, and you could insert that information so that you could insert that extra column. But this report it's got the criteria first of all at the top, so the date range that you've run the report for, the transaction number range if you specified one, and also the range of nominal codes that you're running it for. Now, obviously, I had 4,000 highlighted, so it's only run it for that one nominal code. So it's got all of the transactions against that nominal code that fall within the transaction range and the date range. And as you can see, we've got two overall balances on this one, and this is a common question. What's the difference between the account balance and the history balance? Now, depending what you're looking for, or depending maybe what you're comparing to what, determines which balance you should be looking at. The account balance is not date sensitive, so it doesn't relate to the date range that we specified when we run the report. So it's a bit like the nominal codes on that list, that balance that we're showing. So when we enter that future dated transaction, that's included in that account balance. The history balance is generally the one that you'll be looking to use when you're comparing to other values, such as maybe you're comparing against a trial balance. But you need to make sure that you're running it for the same sort of periods. So this is based around, the history balance is based around the transactions that are listed. Now you'll see I've really only got transactions against this account for in the sort of the month of March. But I'll go and run this one again. So we'll just close out and we'll run it again. And I'm going to split the month this time. So we'll do it, let's do the 15th of the 3rd, 2025, just to split some of those transactions, and we'll do it to the end of the month. So 31st of March, 2025. Now, if I do that, zoom in again, you'll see that I get a different value this time. So the account balance, again, ignores any dates, just showing you the balance against the account, but the history balance is based on those transactions. So it's not necessarily this history balance isn't necessarily the balance at the end of that period. It's based around the transactions that are listed. If I wanted the transactions for this date range, but I want to also say, right, well, what's the balance at the end of that period? I need to make sure that I include any brought forward balance. So if we just close out, we'll run that one again. I'll specify, was it the 15th? I think I specified. And we'll run it to the 31st. But this time what I want to do, I want to include this brought forward transactions. So what that's going to do by ticking that, any transactions that are dated prior to the date range, it'll summarize those as a brought forward balance if there is one. So we'll just OK that. We'll preview it. So you'll see the top, let's zoom in a little bit more so you can see that. I can hardly see it myself. So we've got that brought forward balance. So this is a summary of all of those transactions prior to that date range. So not a big value in this instance, but it does include it in the history balance. It includes that figure. So this would be the balance against this nominal code, this history balance at the bottom. It's the balance against that nominal code as at the end of the date range. So in this case, as at the end of March. So that would agree with the likes of or it should agree with the likes of my trial balance, because I'm running it up to the end of a calendar month. It's a very common query that. So when people are running the likes of the nominal activity and they're comparing it to the likes of the trial balance, it's very common to use this figure. So it's this figure at the bottom, the history balance, that you should be using. But you need to make sure you've included brought forward. Now that's one way to get at the information. The other thing to bear in mind as well is when we go into, if I don't highlight anything, so we'll just remove the highlight. If I've got nothing selected, when I go and run that report, the nominal activity, it will run it for every single nominal code. Now, if you do that, you might find you've got quite a lengthy report in there. Now, I haven't got many transactions, but I've just generated a 77-page report. So do be careful if you're going to run that. What I would normally always recommend, if you're doing this report, preview it first. Then do you actually want to print it or not? Have you got the right information? Because this can be quite lengthy. And you can see on this as well, we've got nominal codes where it just says no transactions. So it's got the nominal code, it's got the description, 0 account balance, and there are no transactions. And you quite commonly find that there might be loads of nominal codes in the same position. So that's what that other report is used for, removing this type of information from the report itself. So it shows pretty much the same, but only those records that have transactions. So this is the nominal activity excluding no transactions. So if I just OK that one, and you can see it now starts on, just doesn't have that 0010 nominal code. It's straight into the 0020. It's the first one that's got some sort of balance against it. Obviously from here, you've got your standard options. You can print it, you can email it, you can export it. So various options. When you come to export, it will default to a PDF, but there are other file formats available for you as well. And of course, you've got the option to send either the report to Excel or the data to Excel. Now, if you're looking to sort of analyze your transactions in Excel, it's something you can do from the activity screen as well. We just close out of that. We'll go back into the activity window within the record. And you've got your send to Excel option at the top as well. So let's just set it back to a custom range. I'll do all transactions. So just reset it. So we've got them all. And then let's say I've found the transactions I want, but I think, right, actually I want to analyze that. I'm looking for transactions against a specific project, or transactions certain value, or maybe I'm just looking for in a particular date range. I can do that just by clicking send to Excel. Whatever's listed, that's what gets transferred across. So 628 transactions in my case. Just busy. I'll just let that move. I'll let that go across because it's nearly there. It's quite quick. Obviously, it'll slow down now that I've said that, but we'll just let it run, transfer it across. So it's just open on my other screen. There it is. And then we've got that information. So whatever information is listed on that activity screen, the transactions, it'll transfer those across for you. And again, you could quite easily at that point, if you wanted to, put your filters on and start filtering by, if I wanted department 1 only, I can do that. I'm sure you're familiar with working in Excel. So you've got a number of options when it comes to the activity report and viewing that activity information. Right, any questions so far? It's been very quiet on the questions front this morning. I'm going to pop back to the slides. Speaking of questions, I just want to quickly pick up on 2 of those common questions. So first of all, the common one, how do I select multiple records or multiple nominal codes before I run the report? Maybe you only wanted to pick up your sales nominal codes, for instance, before you run the report. You don't want it just to pick up everything. So how do you do that? Well, it's just a case of making sure you've highlighted the records that you're after. Now, if I quickly pop back to my screen, and currently I've got nominal 4,000 selected. Now, if I want to include, let's say, Sales Scotland, so 4,002 on the report, I only wanted to run it for Sales North and Sales Scotland. If I click onto Sales Scotland, you'll see that highlight follows me around. And this is what we term the selection style. Now, if I want to select multiple records, I've got a few different ways of doing that. If I just hold down the Control key, then when I click onto Sales Scotland, it highlights it as well. I could maybe click on that one. It would highlight it. If I release the key though and then click onto another nominal code, you'll see I'm back to sort of that highlight following me around. So there are two methods of selecting records as well. That's one of them. You can change that one, and if I go back to my preferred method, so Tools, Options, Environment, and I'm going to choose the Sage selection style. And this method is slightly different. It is my preferred one, this one. If I just go back down, if I want to select and highlight multiple records this time, we have more of an on-off style. So if I click onto Sales North, that's fine. I click on it to highlight it. If I want to remove the highlight, I click on it again. So it's like an on-off highlight option. If I now click on Sales Scotland, it'll just highlight it. And I can randomly click whichever records I'm after. And then when I run the report, it will base it around the ones that I've got highlighted. Let's just click clear. The other question, which we've already touched on in today's session, is the difference between the account balance and the history balance. That is probably the most common question when you're talking about the nominal activity. So account balance, remember, that is not date sensitive. It is just whatever the overall balance is based on the transactions that have been posted to that account. The history balance is probably going to be the one that you're after if you're comparing it to other reports. But remember, if you want the balance at the end of that period, you need to include brought forward when you run it. So you need to tick that little box. So that as I say, that's the common one that catches people out. Right, now that just about brings us to the end of the demo this morning, on the webinar. If you've got any final questions, if you want to pop them in there, I'll try and pick them up in just a moment. Just to remind you, loads of information available in our help center. And if you're not familiar with things like sort of the debits and credit side of accounting, you want to maybe brush up on your knowledge, have a look in Sage University. There should be that bookkeeping fundamentals session in there. So you can get into Sage University by going to sageu.com. You will need to set yourself up a log on for it, which is free to do that. It's a really quick process as well. And it means you'll have access to all of the e-learning courses as well. But our help centre is a great source of information. There's support guides in there. You'll find webinars. There'll be short videos on particular topics. And if you can't find what you're after, it'll highlight the methods for getting in touch. Just to remind you as well, if you haven't already, if you are based in the UK, for Sage 50 accounts, Copilot is now available. Now, if you've heard about this, but maybe you haven't started using it yet, or maybe you've seen the little icon in your software, but you've not had the courage to click on it yet, and you want to find out more about Copilot, then please get yourself registered for one of our Copilot webinars. See a few of you from Ireland that I recognise the names of as well. Copilot isn't available for Ireland yet, so it's UK only currently. But Copilot it's like what we would term a digital assistant. It surfaces key information, so helping you to things like manage debt, so look after your customers, see if there's any overdue balances, see which balances will be overdue in the next 7 days, for instance. So that type of information, it'll just alert you to that type of thing. Similar for managing stock. So items that are out of stock, low on stock, or maybe are estimated to be out of stock within the next 30 days. So it'll highlight that type of thing for you. So if you want to see that in action, please get yourself registered and you'll see loads of demos on that one. Margaret, yes, you mentioned there, I guessed your question. I knew you would ask that one, which is why I preempted that one already. So yeah, Copilot isn't available if you're in Ireland. So I knew that question would come. Okay, so it brings us to the end of the webinar. I think that was the only outstanding question that we did have there. So many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it. Have a fab weekend. If you can, take a minute to complete the survey. That should pop up as you leave the session today. Share your thoughts, ideas, topics you'd like to see covered going forward. If you could do that, always appreciated. Your follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour's time. It'll have the link to today's recording, a link to register for our upcoming webinars, and also if you've missed any sessions or need a bit of a recap, there is the recordings link as well. So loads of recordings, loads of topics available covering most of your software. So once again, many thanks. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on some other sessions next week.